Hello, welcome to Big Bang Radio Spotlights. This is a show where we talk to independent artists from all around the world all about their music and their process for making it. I'm your host, Isaac Anderson, and today I get to sit down with Ins Kino. Without any further ado, here's the interview. Well, Evan, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. I want to start at the beginning of your musical journey, just like we do with all the other artists that we talk to on this show. So the first question right out of the gate, what is your earliest musical memory?
Dancing in the living room to the Beatles live at the BBC with my dad. My dad is a huge Beatles fan, and so he had a great stereo system that we would blast in the living room. So being surrounded by music in that context definitely filled the house a bit, and that's like the earliest thing I could kind of picture as far as something to groove to, something to and then a memory with him obviously as well. So definitely was dancing the living room to the Beatles.
Do you remember the first time that you heard a song and were really struck by the way it was written or the structure of the lyrics?
To the Beatles again, as far as especially the later Sgt. Pepper era Magical Mystery Tour side of things, where new orchestrations are coming in, and wordplay being a fundamental piece of it as well. So definitely that was a major influence overall. I think as far as words go and language go, I was a big reader. And so I think partly just the fact that I read a lot of books as a kid, definitely attached to language and ideas that, would kind of serve any songwriting down the road latently. I don't think it was something that I was, even really thinking about, but as time went on, certainly I think can pull in from some of those literary references as well. But overall, I think listening to the Beatles and getting a lot of that 60s color. I mean, I love Pet Sounds and the Beach Boys as well. So having that as a reference point gave a great sense of what production could bring as far as sounds. And then even more kind of contemporarily, I think once the software on Logic and Pro Tools and everything else, but particularly the Logic setting for the Mellotron. I mean, being such a accessible and intuitive tool to use, allowed a lot of those soundscapes to come out without too much tweaking. It was very user friendly, where you could get a lot out of just a couple buttons here, a couple buttons there, and achieve that more verbose soundscape that the orchestration would provide. So
you've been playing music for quite some time, but do you remember if there was a moment in your life where you said that music is going to be the thing that you wanted to pursue?
I think like a lot of probably high school guys my age or back then, I would dance in the living room or dance in my bedroom and put on concerts and put on shows. As soon as I learned how to put a few notes together in guitar, you get pretty hooked in as far as what's possible. Having a lot of, watching a lot of bands play live, watching films like A Hard Day's Night, things like that. Even another one, That Thing You Do, Tom Hanks movie about, a one-hit wonder band that develops in the 60s, gave that picture of, rock guys playing music and, in suits and everything else, and just gave that, piqued the interest for sure. And then having a couple rewarding experiences playing in high school, just kind of keeps the interest for sure. So I think just as you get those small victories of playing an open mic or playing a little high school show or something like that, just kind of keeps it in view, and definitely being surrounded by music once again, being in kind of school orchestras and everything else, and having music in the house definitely helps continue to foster that for sure.
It's another view. I think the world of you, but it's just smoke and mirrors. I don't have a way. The world, I'll visualize and forget you. I walk around in you now and then until I find the end somehow.
When I hear your music, there's this really lovely 60s vibe going on, and there's also this kind of visual type depth that you have in the production and every element of the songwriting. When you go about writing the songs, do you typically try to write the music and then the lyrics on top of it, or do you already have set lyrics to try to write music around it? I don't know, how exactly does that work for you?
It could be that a lyrical idea pops in your head or a melody pops in your head and you're going off of that. Or, I think more often is the case, you have, a couple guitar chords you want to try to string together. And then you kind of try to let the ideas flow from there. I think, I'm drawn to, I think I'm a visual thinker. I think I like to think in terms of vignettes or like little episodes kind of in my head. I'm sure I have some vision of what I'm trying to kind of express in words, and I'm sure, but to another listener, I'm sure it means, 100 different things. But I think I definitely am trying to reach for, language that conjures up imagery overall. And then as far as the soundscape, I think, a lot of, I think I'm just attracted to kind of the same kind of production of that 60s sound, where it's big, it's romantic, it's, it leaves nothing on the table as far as, it kind of throws a lot at the music in order to kind of bring it out in different ways. And so yeah, I think it's mainly that visual thinking coupled with, trying to use language to, figure out what those images are in my head, and then, piecing it all together. It certainly doesn't happen all at once, or, there's definitely, have a lyrical idea, leave it there for a month, put it on a voice recording memo, and then come back to it eventually, and then kind of work from there. I think it's it's a slow process for sure. I think I'm a pretty slow writer, pretty deliberate when it comes to kind of putting the ideas together.
Along with playing music, you have worked as a history teacher, and I find that really interesting, especially when it comes to a songwriting perspective, because you have a love for not only, the history of the world, but the history of music, and I'm just really interested, how exactly has that love and that profession influenced your songwriting and your creative process?
I think if history being kind of the greatest story ever told, where we derive a lot of our writing from in terms of our art, I think it's a great source material. And so evoking, a time period, or evoking a kind of broader human emotion through a historical image definitely can be something that bleeds in, and definitely is a part of, I guess, my mindset when putting songs together. Absolutely.
I want to hop onto your location right now, because you reside in one of my favorite places, Raleigh, North Carolina. And for those that don't know, that is a really awesome spot for creatives of all types. But just for you, Evan, how exactly has that area been for your creativity, and how do you feel like it's affected your songwriting?
I think you've got 3 in 1, which is great. You've got Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill all in one place. So I think on one hand, it's a great spot to jump out from and touch a lot of different areas with a lot of with kind of 3 unique scenes. I love the access of the Raleigh scene. It's very accessible as far as putting a gig together and getting a show out. I think you have Durham, which is very, inherently artistic and definitely, pulls some natural listeners. Same thing for Chapel Hill as well. Plus, the more college rock scenes of both those ends as well. Lots of points of access and lots of people getting creative, especially post-pandemic, in terms of where to play. Places that weren't venues before have tried to put shows together now, and you also start to see, some of the other venues that were shut down starting to kind of roll back out again. So I think you're definitely in that rollout phase, but it's been a really inviting artistic environment overall, I'd say. And I like the fact, once again, that it's kind of a center hub where you could jump out to a lot of different places from there.
Well, I think now will be an awesome time to bring up your new EP, which is Ins Kino 2. It's full of a lot of awesome songs, great production, great songwriting, just a really great experience to listen to. What was the process of making that like for you?
I'd have to go back to really my first EP. I think I noted earlier I'm a pretty slow mover when it comes to kind of getting music out there, or in terms of kind of feeling like it's ready or whatever that may mean. But I mean, that first EP was probably the buildup of, you know, a few years of just kind of writing on my own and not really showing it to anybody in particular. I had, except for my buddy Zach O'Brien, who ended up producing both of the past EPs that I've put out. And, you know, we had that musical exchange that continued. We met as, you know, random suite mates in college, and started kind of a musical relationship there, as well as a great friendship. And, you know, as we shared stuff through the years, he lives in New York, I live down here. So, you know, having that exchange kind of continued online. And then I guess like 2019, before, you know, the pandemic had hit, we had made this plan. We found ourselves at kind of convergent moments of you know, choices, as far as me desiring to, like, I got some music and I'm ready to put it out, and then he was also getting into, you know, a composition program in New York to actually put composition and production together. So we basically, you know, felt like what a serendipitous time to kind of put our heads together and collaborate the way that we'd always wanted. And so went up to New York, and actually the week the pandemic happened, to record the first EP. And since then, that, you know, musical flow has continued, where, you know, we'll exchange, you know, the music we're working on. And then, you know, the second EP kind of picks up right where that first one left off, as far as, you know, having those songs and putting those together over the course of 2020, 2021, and then trying to move into the studio, his studio actually that he has in New York City, River Run Recording, to put the tracks down. Those songs kind of, I think a couple of them popped up during the recording process, or during the kind of pre-production process. And then by the time we got to New York to record, we had all four kind of ready to go. So it was a little more, probably more organic in the moment than it was the bigger buildup of the first EP. But there's definitely a through line between the two projects, and the opportunity to once again work with a good friend in Zach. So.
Well, that EP is out right now on all streaming platforms. And if people want to keep up with your music, how can they find you online?
Basically through Instagram right now, and Bandcamp I think would be one as well, as far as where things are posted. But Ins Kino Music is the handle, or at Ins Kino Music, and then that's where, you know, as far as show dates and things like that will be posted. Has been the most efficient tool so far. So yeah, that's where you can find, at least all that stuff. And then as far as looking on the music, just any of the streaming platforms, YouTube, and anywhere that you can download something, it's out there. So.
Well, Evan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We really do appreciate you taking the time. But before you go, I have one more question to ask you. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a Big Bang Radio Spotlight before, but I'm a musician, but I also love film. And I believe those two worlds are very close to each other, and musicians like you and I have a soft spot for it. And I know for a fact you do, because I read that you are a film buff at heart. So I think this question is going to be right up your alley. What is your favorite movie?
Singing in the Rain. That one's definitely in that top tier. I mean, Gene Kelly, the production value, Debbie Reynolds, and Donald O'Connor, just, and these great, amazing set pieces. Beautiful musical, and then Sound of Music, iconic on its own. Master and Commander, Far Side of the World, Barry Lyndon. If there's people, the sense of scale is very, very real and present. Those are probably some hallmarks of my list of things that I constant go-tos for sure. With those, be hard to whittle it down to one.
Thanks to Ins Kino for sitting down with us and talking all about his music. If you want to see more interviews just like this, you can find us online at Studio 67 NCC. Thank you all for watching. I'm Isaac Anderson, and until next time, stay lovely.